like to remind you about the Q&A section in Zoom. So if anything that you're curious about, just don't hesitate to ask. So I'm gonna proceed with your questions at the end of this talk. So as Nikita told, my name is Oleksandr, and I'm head of big data practice in GlobalLogic for Central and Eastern Europe. And I'm gonna make a walkthrough with you on my experience with a marketing business area and how we did a solution and optimize this for our customer, for our client. And it would cover a couple things. So it's not just the technical stuff. So I'm gonna jump to the business area, to delivery model, and how team does work with different participants. So all of these things, they all together actually involved in the success of the project. So I would start with explanation of the marketing as itself, because most of you might think of, oh, marketing, it's boring stuff. What are they doing? And then I'm gonna jump to the starting point where I was involved. So, and then I'm gonna briefly describe the challenges that we had on the project. And after that, I'm gonna go to the next steps and evolution, what we're supposed to do next and how we're gonna evolve our solution that we have for the client. And then I'm gonna briefly describe the conclusions that I made for myself, and I'm really happy that I can share with you all of these things. Okay, so just a little bit of marketing. So what are they doing? What are they doing? What is it about? So that's actually they're trying to find what we're buying in the shops. You, me, any of you. And they actually trying to figure out our purchasing behavior. How do we behave in the shops? What drives me or you to buy or not to buy items? They would like marketing companies to target audience better. No one wants to deliver to you an advertisement that you don't want to see. They really try to figure out what would fit best for you, specifically for you. And of course, when brand or retailer has set up a marketing campaign, they would like to adjust this campaign to fit better to the customer expectation. And of course, they have budget, and companies would like to spend their budget more effective. They would like to know what kind of purchases, what kind of advertisement actually lead to the purchases. So if anyone's seen this, let's say, map of the advertisement, how they typically deliver it. So you're on the right side. Brands who want to promote make their marketing campaign, they are on the left side. And of course, in the middle, there's real-time bidding platform. That's a crazy thing. You can think of this, if you have heard of Google AdSense, that's actually ad exchange platform. But today it's a lot of ad exchange platforms. Google is not the biggest and the only player on this market. So where is our customer? Our customer is here on the bottom. He is interacting with all players on these things. So this customer is about the data, collecting data and purchasing data from different providers. Okay, let's see. One of the business scenario, this business scenario that we started on the platform, and this actually platform where I was involved was dedicated just to a single business scenario. Of course, then later it was extra other business scenarios, but everything started with one simple business scenario. What we're supposed to do? This platform is supposed to solve such kind of things and answer such kind of question. Figure out how advertisement online and offline, what we call impression. If you see an online advertisement on website, on cell phone, we call this impression. you have just to see it, nothing more. That's you're already impressed with advertisement. If you have printed coupons that promoting something, that's an offline advertisement. So we would like to figure out how this advertisement, online and offline, leads you to purchase something, or maybe wouldn't lead to purchase. So you saw advertisement and decide to buy nothing. And also, probably you have heard of this. If you also involved in this marketing things, and there is a term like multi-touch attribution, MTA. So MTA, this means that you were affected by one advertisement, another advertisement from different channels, and this led to the purchase, to the promote. You decided to purchase promoted item, and they would like to figure out how this works, and a couple privacy concern on these things. So you might be curious: are they spying on me, these companies? In some way, actually, yes. So they want to know what you did online and what you purchased offline. But keep in mind that most of this data that transferred to such kind of marketing companies, you actually try to read end user agreement. It's in most cases you voluntarily agreed to transfer this data, and you agreed that information about you gonna be transferred and gonna be sold to the third-party companies. So they actually don't break the law by purchasing and selling this information about you. But yeah, they do this. Do they want to steal your private data? No, there is no actually private data in marketing companies. So they don't know your last name, first name, or anything like this. They care about, are you in category of young person or some middle-aged person or elderly, but they really don't care about your birthday, about your last name, first name, and the name of your dog. They don't care about this. Do they have something about your bank accounts and credit cards? No, they don't. It's also sensitive and private information. They actually don't have this, but they have, if you have a frequency shopper card, if you bought something and you provided a shopper card, they have it, because it's not a private information. You actually tracked by this frequency shopper card. And do they buy and sell from other? Yes, of course. So it means if you left your private, or not a private, information about your behavior or about your activity on the web in one company, and there is another company, they probably share information with each other, and they try to track and match this information about you in different, let's say, in different areas and different activities. Okay, so that was about the privacy in the business. Where did we start? So the whole platform was in the Azure, in Microsoft Azure, and it was infrastructure as a service. So it was rolled out virtual machine and that kind of tool. If you are a DevOps, you probably have heard of the Cloud Break. So Cloud Break was basically infrastructure management for this platform. And what kind of services we had? That was Hortonworks, data platform, HDP, with some Bari managed services on top of this. No unit tests. Who cares about unit tests? So nothing like this. Everything I have started that I just saw this business logic that implemented on the Spark jobs like this. A lot of NiFi use. I would cover this up. NiFi is a great tool, no objections, but don't put everything on a NiFi. It just don't do this, and don't try to make that NiFi would solve every big data problem for you. It's not. It's just not. Most of the Spark jobs that we had, it was Scala written. So Scala was a primary language in this project. And of course, there was no CI/CD process. So if you have to deploy code, you have to do this manually, or DevOps is supposed to do this for you. Okay, what was the sources? Actually, that's kind of typical sources that you might experience on the project, like Oracle, the relational database, Netezza. Netezza actually, if you haven't heard of this, that's a product by IBM, and it's oriented on, let's call them warehouses, data warehouses. MongoDB is one of the main source for our solution. It also even files on S3 bucket and on Amazon. So you have to grab this files from Amazon S3 buckets. And it was a Hive on a third-party server. Okay, scheduling. Nice description from Vladimir. And scheduling is a pain point. It's a big pain point. If you have a lot of pipelines and a lot of execution, you're always going to experience the scheduling things. So how it was on this project? So on this project, it was Uzi that called shell script that can call Java application, custom written Java application. That would call NiFi. Or another option that this shell script in the middle, it's actually a wrapper on top of the different, let's say, different items to invoke. So another item could be Spark job, scoop job, just copy from Oracle. That's a scoop job to do. Or if you want to grab a file, that you probably need a DCP command. So yeah, kind of bigger pipeline. Oh, yeah, but of course we have to interact with Postgres why do we need this Postgres and the extra shell scripts? Just to keep a tracking of the pipeline, like when the pipeline started, when the starter is finished, what the status, what kind of dependency, small statistic, how many rows we uploaded. So it was half managed by Uzi, half managed self-made orchestration. Yeah, I would cover later what the transition plan for this one. And of course, if you another starting point and I would say pain point of this project was that if you work with a company that has a big history, for instance, like 30 years on the market, that it has a big solution map. So we have our data platform, and we have a couple, I would call them main sources. But if you take a look at the whole solution map that around the platform, it's kind of mess. And I would say I still I'm not sure that I covered this map with how the data transferred from platform to platform is covered properly. So, and I have to talk to at least 10 architects to figure out what's going on in the company. So yeah, it's a challenge. If you just started a project or in some kind of enterprise company, try to at least have something similar to this. Try to figure out what's going on around your platform, because in most cases no one cares about. Every architect cares about its own platform, but in general, no one cares how they interact with each other. Okay, and if we're talking about this platform that we had, of course, typical things like we have to have a layer with data. It was ADLS. If you haven't heard, it's Azure Data Lake. It's managed HDFS by Microsoft. So it was a data lake on this one. And on top of this, it was transformation and orchestration. Orchestration parts I already described before. And the transformation was, in most cases, at Scala written Spark jobs. As for the indexing, it was a Solr. It's still a Solr. Let's see. And yeah, on top of this platform, we have a couple business scenarios. One of them I described in the very beginning. And the typical data pipeline. So you transfer from raw to refined, from refined to target, from target to presentation, from presentation to indexing. So what's the difference? Just if you don't know, I don't say that it's a perfect scenario, but that's kind of good, what's the difference between all these stages or schemas? So first of all, raw just you grab from the source data as is, nothing changed, no transformation. Then refined layer. Refined layer in this project, what was the difference between raw and refined? We decided to have a single format of the data on this platform as ORC. You know, there is Avro, Parquet, and ORC. So at this platform, it was everything in ORC. So at the refined layer, we transform all the data from their raw format to the ORC. Then target layer is dedicated to the specific business scenario. So if you need to extract entities and unify them for a particular business scenario, you do this on the target layer. And presentation layer, if you need a pre-aggregation or some sort of, I don't know, calculation to implement, you do this between target and presentation while transfer from target to presentation. And of course, for the convenience, you know, Solar and Elasticsearch, they has REST API to communicate. So if you have a backend on top of your Solar or Elasticsearch, you can actually transfer this pre-aggregated data to the indexing storage. That's how it was implemented. Let's see. So what kind of challenges? You probably have mentioned that there's such kind of thing like no unit tests. So what we're supposed to do? Let's make them, of course. I'm pretty sure that not everyone at this session have seen unit tests for the Spark jobs. But you can do this, you know, it's not a big thing. Just grab this Scala test framework, and you can create, you know, small in-memory Spark and HDFS to do your unit tests. I can show you just a quick example how it's supposed to do. And you just use the same technique that software engineers apply with given, when, then. That's it. You, in the given section, you prepare your in-memory input parameters. In the when section, you just call the method or function that you would like to test. And you transfer Spark context and your schema, so forth. In the then section, you just verify that this transformation business logic that you applied in that you have performed in the when section. So you have to verify this output. If you don't have any tests, what I recommend you, start verifying at least contract. By the contract, I mean that you have at least agreed set of fields in the output. I do understand it's hard to cover all use cases. Don't try to cover all use cases. Start with a happy case, at least one single happy case, happy scenario, and also try to verify that the format of your output is as exactly what you expect to see there. So if you expect to see, you see here, we have fields, ID1, ID2, and ID type. So I'm trying to verify in this unit test that my output at least has these 3 fields. So start at least with this one. Okay. Yeah, the scheduling thing, you know, this invocation chain, it's hard to maintain and hard to extend. So it's just too long. First of all, we try to get rid of the NiFi, at least in the scope of the batch orchestration. I know that some of you are trying to do this with NiFi, but I wouldn't recommend this. We had bad times with NiFi that was involved in the batch jobs. NiFi works fine with you know, some stream integration and something like this, very similar to the stream jobs that you might experience, but don't use this for the batch or batch orchestration or any jobs related to the batch. So first of all, of course, we would like to get rid of the NiFi. Shell, you know, shell scripts is great. Everyone knows how to use shell script, But to maintain shell scripts, it's a pain for the developers. Can you cover shell scripts with unit tests? Probably yes, but it's not a programming language. It's a sort of programming language, but if you have Python and shell script, I would go with Python instead of the shell scripts. Uzi is a great job if you have, is a great tool if you have only MapReduce jobs, I would say in this way. But if you have couple of points that you have to invoke, even if you have Spark jobs that you have to submit, I would get rid of the Uzi. And of course, Airflow, yeah, our best choice. Let's see. Yeah, that might be a performance issue. Like we had a job that takes 4 hours to run and take all of the resources on the cluster. How would we solve this? So we first of all, you have to analyze the job, what this job does, and then figure out that job try to process every day amount of data that equal to 1 year, 52 weeks of orders history, everything that folks purchased in the United States. So it was a painful, what we decided to do, it's actually, you can make incremental, the same job that that counts for the full history. You can make day by day processing and count just a small portion for every day and sum it up with previous calculation, and that's how we solve it. It's yeah. So think if you see extensive use of the resources on your cluster, try to figure out, can you optimize and instead of the big bulk things of processing, make it incremental. So I know that a lot of manager thinks like, oh, you do a big data. So if you do big data, so we can process enormous amount, petabytes of data every day. No, you actually can do, but if you don't have to do this, just don't do this. It's a waste of resources. It's a waste of resources. For 4 hours, the whole cluster is unavailable. Is it a good thing? No, it's not. Yeah. The thing is, even if you have this cloud break as a manager of our blueprints, it doesn't help really. Infrastructure as a code is essential thing. We don't have this. We still don't have this. So if you need to set up a new cluster, we have prod, we have SQA, we have dev. But if we need a new cluster, for instance, for performance testing, it would take about 10 days to set up a new cluster. It's just a painful thing. Yeah. And it's a problem for the DevOps, how to make this. For the CI/CD things, so back in the time, it was no CI/CD at all. What we decided to do, at least we can make CI/CD for the jar files, for the Scala code, for the Spark applications. And yes, we did it, of course, together with this DevOps side. DevOps did a great job with Jenkins and established a pipeline there. We did our jobs to help them write shell scripts that would transfer these jar files and execute all the necessary stuff. We partially covered CI/CD for Uzi scripts, but it's still a big pain. It's still, we have to perform a manual job to drop Uzi jobs. Of course, as the next step, I would cover this soon, that with Airflow, we might get a better CI/CD pipelines. Yeah, continuous delivery for the shell script, kind of easy, and you can cover this easy by just copying shell scripts from your repository, from your Git to the necessary environment. That's it. Level of security. When you just establish the big data cluster, no one cares about security. Just in most cases, you just establish it and that's it. How do you log in Dambari? You have admin account and the password. If anyone else would like to get to your Dambari, you just share your admin credential and the password. And now If you see adjustment in your query, you have to figure out and ask in the Slack chat, like, guys, who did this? Who did this adjustment to the configuration? Stop do this. Yeah, and we also had another problem that to the, you know, what is the edge node? Edge node, it's a start point of the cluster where you can connect and see from shell, from the SSH, you can see all the services and all this Linux stuff. So every developer use the same credential and the same SA account to the edge node. Just don't do this. Just try to avoid this as much as possible. And developers has access to prod. That's also a big problem. It's just close all the access for developers to the prod. If you're the DevOps, please just don't allow your developers to have any access to prod. It's such a big pain when someone dropped and did something on the production. It just don't do this. In the perfect world, what we would like to achieve, of course, that no one would have an access to the production at all. So everything in production happened automatically with your continuous delivery pipelines. That's another interesting stuff that our client experienced. It's not dedicated to our particular platform, but the client had this thing that main application outside of our platform was built on top of Kafka 0.7 version. If you worked with Kafka, you probably noticed something wrong here. That version of Kafka 0.7 is so old. There is no Spark libraries that you can connect to this Kafka and consume it. It left just one custom libraries for the Java that can consume anything from this solution. So if you just ask your DevOps to perform update of your infrastructure as at least please support a major release version. It would solve your problems, because you can end up with a situation like our client that there is no clients, there's no connection libraries, how you can actually consume your data in the Kafka. So yeah, things could happen. Okay, a couple of things and steps that help to evolve this platform. Tactical or short term, of course, switch of the NiFi to the stream ingestion only. All the batch thing would have to happen in the Airflow. Airflow is your best friend for the batch orchestration. Don't use NiFi. That's my suggestion and my tip. It's also a plan to avoid this static infrastructure for a Spark job and try to make a switch to the Databricks. But I don't think that we're gonna implement this in the near future. For the strategic and long-term things, of course, it would be nice to get rid of this Kafka, old Kafka, and switch to the version 2. As far as I remember, Kafka is one of the latest version, 2.4 or something like this. And there is also an extra team that works on the next generation platform. What does it mean, this next generation platform? I see this intention of different customers and different clients. They would like to make a switch to the managed by cloud provider services instead of managing this infrastructure by themselves. So what this could be in the context of the Azure. So for the orchestration, that might be a data factory. For the processing, instead of the static cluster for the Spark, we can utilize this Databricks. For the storage, of course, it's Azure Data Lake. And for the stream services, it might be Event Hub. So yeah, if you're looking forward for what to learn for the future, and you're familiar with any platform, with AWS, with Azure, with Google Cloud, just try to figure out what they have for the big data tools. Every platform has something for the big data tools. Okay, what kind of conclusion I can make? Of course, DevOps, quality assurance engineers, and L2 and InfoSec, they are your best friends. DevOps can help you manage this CI/CD process, the delivery model, and they can help you with infrastructure as a code. Quality assurance engineers, they can bring a better quality of your data pipelines. L2 support, that's actually all orchestration tool that you are working about. They're gonna be your main target audience. You have to pick orchestration tool that's gonna be the most convenient for your L2 support. Because if your pipeline has been broken, the first point who gonna be react to this failure of your pipeline, that's gonna be L2 support, not your development team. And InfoSec, they could help you establish a good security practices. For instance, one of the best solutions is try to integrate your accounts and logins to Ambari, to the Edge node with a single sign-on system. So you can use your account from the domain. So that would be the best option. I see this company in different, this demand from different companies. They would like to move to the platform as a services. That's a bunch of benefits actually in the when you have this transfer at your management of your cluster, of your resources to the cloud providers like Microsoft, Azure, and Amazon. So yeah, look at this one and figure out what kind of tools this cloud providers, what they have. Yeah, don't leave the security at last. If you do this somewhere in the middle of the project, that's going to be a huge pain. Try to establish this as soon as possible in the very beginning of the project. If you're data engineer, don't hesitate to use common practices of the software engineers, like unit testing. I know that a lot of data engineers, they just don't like to write unit tests. They don't understand why do they need this. Yes, you have to learn this. Try to figure out why do we need this? What the benefit of this? And do this, start doing this today. Try to automate everything that you can, of course. What I told, the rollout of a new environment, it has to be automated. No manual jobs. You know, if you have to roll out a new environment, that's gonna take 10 days. It's not okay. It's just not okay at all. Documentation first. That's an interesting thing. I didn't cover this a lot, but try to also apply this technique. So before you start engineering of a new pipeline, try to write documentation before you start engineering, not after. So you wouldn't start your work on the user story if you didn't cover a software design in the Confluence or whatever you use. And then if you completed your job with documentation and you did review, like you do a code review, you know, with your Scala code or Python code, try to make a documentation review with your architect or team lead or even a product team. They also have to at least understand something what you're going to do in your pipeline. They also have to be aware of the business logic that you're going to put in your pipeline, in your Spark job. So try to do documentation first. It helps greatly to, at least you're going to have less questions on the code review session. You know, if you don't have documentation and you created a pull request with your Spark job written in Scala, it might take, I have experienced this multiple times. So you spend a week on writing your Scala code, but you have to spend 4 weeks for the code review and make adjustments from your team lead or your peers, what they're suggesting and what they think about. So try to make a documentation first, and everything gonna be clear for everyone. So it's the only code that's gonna be required from your side for the user story. I think that's it. Yeah. So I hope that you enjoyed with this talk.